The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I want to tell you a murder story. There was a Yid, and he was coming back. He was traveling in El Al from Italy back to Eretz Yisrael. And he was standing on line by the counter, and there was 3-4 people in front of him. And he saw behind him tons and tons and tons of Israelis, students. He found out from one of them that they're all medical students. And they were doing semester in Italy, learning from big Roman doctors, different types of medicines. That's part of the college that they go over there in Israel. And they're coming back home. A midwinter break, and they're coming home, and they're standing there in line. Meanwhile, one of these boys gets up to the counter, and they take his suitcase, and they weigh it. And they tell him, I'm sorry, it's 26 kilogram, and only allowed 23 kilogram. So you have to pay another $100 to go on. He says, for you crazy, for 6 pounds, I'm going to pay $100? What are you, nuts? He opens up his suitcase. He says, show me. It's all dirty clothing and all my stuff. Nothing here worth 6 pounds. There's no 6 pounds here worth $100. What are you, crazy? You're charging me? And the guy says, no, protocol, you have to pay. You don't have it. And they're arguing back and forth. Meanwhile, the people online start screaming at him. And they say, no, come on, you're wasting our time. Let's go pay the $100, move on. Or another guy screams out, throw 6 pounds of your dirty laundry away if it's not worth $100. And everybody's giving him nasty remarks. Meanwhile, this from a Yid, he cuts the line and he comes up with his suitcase and he taps the guy in the shoulder. He says, listen here, my suitcase weighs 10 kilograms. And he puts it up on the scale. And they see it goes from 26 to 36. And he says, why don't you put a couple things? Here's a bag. Take out 3 kilograms. Put it into a bag. Put it in my suitcase. When we get to Israel, I'll be waiting for you. I'll give you back your 6 pounds. And Shalom Al Yisrael. And that's it. You don't have to pay a penny. And the guy behind the counter says, no. You cannot do business over here in the line. You have to pay $100. And you go with 10 kilograms and too bad on your 13 free pounds per kilograms. And the guy says, excuse me, it's my suitcase. I could put in there whatever I want. You have no right to tell me what I can put in. And I could take his stuff and put it into my suitcase. And the same airplane that's carrying me and him is going to carry his stuff in my suitcase. And too bad on you. And he got upset at the guy. And the guy called his supervisor. And the supervisor says, sorry, but he's right. He has a right. You can't tell him what to do. So they took out 6 pounds and they put it into a bag and they put it into this from a Yid suitcase and they weighed it. It was less than 23 kilograms. They let him in. And then eventually the Yid went back into line. He didn't cut anybody. He waited. And the other 2-3 people in front of him went. And then the Yid checked in his thing. He had 16 kilograms now. Very good. Showing 13 kilograms. And he went and he came in. They went onto the plane. And the Yid sat down and he noticed that this guy that he helped is sitting 4 rows away from him. Shine. Anyways, the Yid takes out Mishnah Brura and he starts learning. And Shine, he's occupying himself. Eventually, the plane took off and they're flying towards Eretz Yisrael. About an hour later, he feels a tap on his shoulder. He looks up and there's this guy, the overweight suitcase guy. And he says, oh, shalom, how are you? The guy tells him, he says, Adoni, ulai yesh lecha tefillin? Maybe you have a pair of tefillin? He says, yeah, I have tefillin. He says, tamin li, b'chayim sheli, lo natalti tefillin. I never put on tefillin in my life, but I would like to put on tefillin now. Could you help me? He says, sure. He went into the overhead bin and took down his hand luggage, and he took out his tefillin. And he gave him the tefillin. The guy says, Lo, slicha, ta lo mevin. Ani lo yodea pashut ech lasim et zeh. I don't know how to put it on. I never in my life put on tefillin. He says, no problem. He opens it up. He helps the guy pick up his sleeve. He puts on the shel yad. He helps him with the brachas. He puts on the shel roish. And he sits him down in his seat. And he opens up his siddur. He's Israeli, he knows how to read. And he opens up the Shema. And he says, okay, tagid kacha. Shema Yisrael. And the guy says, after him, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, v'ahavta, v'hoya, v'yomer. The guy said that the tefillah, the ganze Kriya Shema, and he's wearing tefillin. And afterwards said, Kiyamta mitzvah, zeh hakol. That's the whole thing. You don't have to do more than that. And the guy took back the tefillin and he wrapped it up and he's putting it away. And he says, tell me one thing. We're now flying already an hour before you came to me. If you wanted to put on tefillin, why did you wait an hour? He says, I'll tell you, I'll explain it to you. He says, when we left the counter by the thing, I was so mad at what happened, I couldn't think straight. And I had to run to the gate. We got to the gate, they opened up, I got on the plane, and I sat there and I calmed down. And then I started to think. I'm thinking like this. There's 85 guys here that are all in medical school with me. They all saw what was happening with me. And what did they do? They started screaming at me. Pay the $100, throw out your clothing. Not one of them felt bad for me. Not one of them shared in my pain. Not one of them cared to do anything about it. And then, out of the blue, there's one from a Yid in line. And he's the only one that comes to my aid. And not only does he come and have a gewaltige Eitzah, how to save my day and save me the $100. And he's putting my dirty laundry in his suitcase. But he comes up, and when the guy doesn't let, he puts up a fight for me. He cares about me like I'm his brother. Where are all my friends? Where are all my roommates? Where are all my classmates? Where are all the guys that we think together and we have the same ideals and we're fighting around, we're supporting the same soccer team and we're doing everything together? But when it comes to something that I'm pitching them the wrong way, all of a sudden they throw me to the dogs and they don't care about me. And you went out of your way to help me. Thinking to myself, what happened? What's the difference between you and them? Why did you come to help me and they didn't come to help me? And it must be that there's one difference between us and you. We're learning to be doctors and you're learning Torah. And there must be something in the Torah that when you learn the Torah, you become a better person. You're working on your midas. You're becoming better. You start caring about other people and not me. And I said that I don't know any mitzvahs, but I've heard about tefillin. And I said, if this is what one mitzvah of tefillin could do to a person, to make him a better person to care about other people, I want to do at least that mitzvah. That's the mitzvah I know, and that's why I asked you to put on tefillin. And it took me an hour to come to that conclusion. And I had to think about it back and forth to make sure that I'm right, that this is the reason why it happened, why you did something and nobody else did it. And Mamela, this is why I asked you for tefillin. And this is the koyach hashpah. And this is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the voice box to the chamor, to the osain, to show the world that if you are learning from your actions and what's going on, and you change because of it, you're mitalmidav shel Avram Avinu. And when you learn nothing from it, you become like Bilam. Like the chamor shel Bilam did something and the Bilam became just like the chamor. Nothing changed. And this is a critical lesson. And this is what the Zohar means. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to create a special bria for one reason. And that reason is that we should learn from the story. And what are we learning from the story? We're learning from the story that you have to be mushba and change when you see something. And change from the Torah that you're learning to become a better person. And if we do these things, we come to our shleimus, and we'll be zeicha to bring Mashiach Tzidkeinu Meher V'Yameinu Amen to Shabbos. Thank you.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org